No script, I just ad-lib with a PowerPoint presentation here. Let's have a look at slide one. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I'm 49 years old, have been employed in the health industry in the past. I'm a double certificate registered nurse, psychiatric and general. I'm currently an occupational health and safety manager, and many years ago I was an electrician, but by and large my exposure in industry and in my working life is in the health industry. So, you know, it was certainly something that always weighed heavily on me in regards to my size, my weight, and the predisposing effect that that weight had on me and how I was seen in the workplace and in life. Okay, so as I said, I was average weight until I was around 10 years old. 10 to 14 years overweight, 15 to 18 trimmed down a little. By about 19, weight started creeping up again. Into my 20s, overweight. Got towards the end of my 20s, into my early to mid 30s, I was obese clinically, and then late 30s to mid 40s, morbidly obese. And this now. I had been on every diet known to man. I've been on Weight Watchers, Gut Busters, Ultra Slim, you name it, I've been there and done that. And as per the classic model, it was a rebound cycle, up and down, up and down, up and down, and there was nothing I could do. No matter how committed I was to that diet protocol, nothing would change that. So going back from memory, probably about 5 years ago, I decided to have a band procedure done. And now, I'm probably jumping the gun a bit there, but certainly I had the gastric banding done, and I persevered with the situation afterwards for probably 18 months to 2 years. Unfortunately, in my personal situation, the band, although I lost probably around 10, 12, 15 kilos, it didn't suit me personally, in that predominantly I was vomiting after nearly every meal, couldn't really keep anything down, and it forced me probably into an abnormal behavioural pattern. I was eating all the wrong foods that were easy to eat that basically bypassed the lap band. So I ended up in a situation where I was basically suffering a lot of what I saw as unnecessary trauma for no really good reason. So at that point I decided enough is enough, I need to do something else. I was still determined to actually have something done to resolve the weight issue, because I did not have confidence in my own strength of will or behaviour to actually overcome that situation. So at that particular time I had the lap band surgery back in Adelaide. We moved here to Melbourne a while ago with my work, and subsequently did some research and found Patrick Moore, and subsequently went through his screening processes and saw Merrill, and ended up having the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Must be getting on for 2 years ago now. Well, let me go through my observations of the band first. Compared to the banding was a very simple operation. You know, it was done with scopes, so you know, minimal trauma afterwards, just a few poke holes in the abdomen. But then afterwards, as I said, difficult to swallow anything of any substantial amount without obstruction. It didn't stop my appetite, which was basically the root of the problem. Obviously it didn't affect my bowel habits because it doesn't really involve that area of the anatomy, but I was always vomiting, and as I said, the band was probably too high. What that ended up with was a bit of a behavioural reliance, in that it was easy to cheat with high calorie feel-good food, which in the end was no good for me. And then the bypass. You know, unfortunately when I had the procedure done, I was a bit of a bleeder, so it was reverted over to an open procedure. So the recovery time was a bit longer. You know, things always seem a bit better in retrospect. At the time, you know, I was pretty, I felt pretty poorly. But, you know, I only had 3 weeks off work, which was probably nowhere near enough. And I went back and made a martyr of myself and probably suffered for it for the next 12 months. But nevertheless, immediately after the surgery, I had no appetite. You know, eating was just not on my radar. It wasn't that I necessarily felt nauseous or unwell, I just didn't have an appetite, and that is in keeping with the research behind the malabsorption and also the other anatomical and physiological responses to the procedure anyway. I had a bit of dumping syndrome, and I still occasionally have some dumping syndrome, which is where if I have anything that's too high sugar content or anything that's acutely enters my bloodstream, it makes me feel nauseous, unwell. I've got to basically stop, sit down, take deep breaths, and just allow my system to rebalance its equilibrium, and then I'm fine. But that's happening less and less as time goes on. But in the first few months, it was quite a common phenomenon. I can now eat normally. When I say normally, I eat till I'm full, which is normally between, I would say, 1/4 to 1/2 of a normal-sized portion of anything. I can pretty well eat anything that I want to, whether it be chocolate or cake or anything in realistic portions. I just have to be careful with the dumping syndrome issue. I've got a normal appetite, but as I said, I eat till I'm full, and the old bowels are starting to get better as time goes on. And no behavioural reliance whatsoever, so basically it's my body telling me what I feel rather than trying to psychoanalyse myself and telling myself not to eat. So now I'm about 93 kilos, my BMI is about 27, which means I'm still classified as overweight, but I think I'm pretty well okay as I am. I'm down to like a 34-inch trousers, which I haven't been since I was about 17, 18, which is great. No major health issues, all my blood tests are fairly normal. I'm quite happy, so is my wife and my family, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it to anyone else.